Well, I've been debating if I want to do this, but since I've reached 2,000 subscribers, well, I think it's reasonable that I do this. Hey guys, Preschool here, and I'm pretty sure a lot of us have watched a lot of preschool shows when we were young. And for most of us, these shows play a big part in our nostalgia, myself included. Cause yeah, there were some shows that were not preschool shows I grew up with, like SpongeBob, Tom and Jerry, Phineas and Ferb. You know, those shows I grew up with, but they're not technically preschool shows. They're mostly kid cartoons. However, I've seen a lot of preschool shows, and most of them were and I found them very nostalgic. Check shows like Dora, Diego, Little Einsteins, Mickey Mouse Clubhouse. You know, those shows I really found really nostalgic. And while my opinions on some shows of I've seen in my childhood have changed, there are some that still hold a big. Some of them still have a big part of my childhood. However, just because the preschool show is great, doesn't mean it's a masterpiece. That's because, like cartoons, preschool shows have their moments of where have their moments, and their moments of their duds. It's they're just hidden under the golden gems of these episodes from these preschool shows are some episodes that are best left not to be touched. So that's why I'm here today. This is my top 5 worst episodes of good preschool shows. This list is gonna have some shows I love, like I found good, or I just find decent. And then again, these are my opinions. If you like any of these episodes that I'm gonna mention on that I will add on this list, that's perfectly fine. I'm not, but these are just my own opinions, and I'm glad you guys can enjoy these episodes. With that said, let's begin. Woozy Walden from Wow Wow Wubsy. Wow Wow Wubsy. A refreshing show surrounding 3 friends, or 4 if you count Daisy, which was introduced in season 2, named Wubsy, Widget, and Walden, who go on random mishaps while also learning some morals along the way. The show does a great job with its storytelling and well-executed morals that are portrayed in a lighthearted tone. However, there are some times where Wubsy doesn't always hold up very well, and the worst offender is Woozy Walden, the last episode of the series. The episode involves Wubsy and Daisy trying to help out Walden, who has a case of the chickenese, which makes him cluck like a chicken. Now, and so Wubsy, and now Wubsy and Daisy are trying to take care of him. Now, and a premise like this has already been done in season 1. Remember Widget Gets the Blues? However, Widget Gets the Blues and Woozy Walden both have different premises, with Widget just quitting event den and falling and getting the bluey blues. Well, in this episode, Walden's sick. Ick. So yeah, both episodes have a similar has different premises but similar elements. And while the execution of which it gets the blue blues worked out very well, that isn't the case here. With which it gets the blues, it was mostly Wubsy and Walden trying to cheer Widget up after one of her vengeance doesn't work. And they didn't mean, and again, they had no intention on making her causing any trouble. With this episode, that's not the case. Throughout the episode, it has the same joke. Walden wants something, Wubsy Daisy think that he wants something different. They do it, and Walden will say he doesn't want it. This joke happens about 3 times in this episode. So, Walden wants something like a blanket, or the blanket, what? The like the pink blanket, and over there, Wubbsy and Daisy think Walden wants the room pink. And when Walden tells them to shh, Wubbsy and Daisy thinks he wants soup. When Walden points to the lights, Wubbsy and Daisy think that he wants music. Music. Saying, the problem with this is that Wubbsy and Daisy act kind of out of character here, and it feels like they're leaning towards stupidity. Come on, the writers behind the show wouldn't make Wubbsy and Daisy this dumb. Again, and it feels this feels very simple. This feels like a modern SpongeBob episode, except it's toned down. Except its the mean spirited level isn't risen so high. Just replace Wubbsy and Daisy with SpongeBob and Patrick, and Walden with Squidward. And again, while Wubbsy and Daisy had no attentions to hurt Walden, or make him feel bad, they still come across as idiots in this episode. And it's shocking that their original personalities are just stripped away just in favor of this episode. Sure, Wubbsy had some episodes where wacky stuff happens, but in those scenarios, they're actually really enjoyable. Here, it's not. It's just annoying, and it has the characters act dumb for no reason. And I swear to God, if I had to hear Wubbsy say, "Of course, why didn't we think of it?" I'm going to flip. What's worse is that this episode is the finale of the show, and it definitely ended a really good show off on a terrible note. The reason why this episode is lower is because, like I said, Wubbsy and Daisy had no intentions to do anything bad to Walden, as they're only trying to help out Walden. But still doesn't excuse their idiotic behavior here. Really doesn't. Overall, this episode was just annoying to watch. But it's not as bad as the other episodes on this list. Yes, I am. No, you're not. From Charlie and Lola. While I wouldn't say Charlie and Lola is a bad series, I wouldn't say it's great. In fact, the closest I can call the show is good and decent, but mostly mixed. All three combined, it's got some nice characters and well-done morals, but the live action elements are distracting, and the animation looks off at points, especially when the characters turn their heads. And it just feels like your typical sibling show. However, I do respect the series enough to call it good enough for me. However, while I can sit through some episodes and I actually do enjoy some of them, yes I am, no you're not, it's definitely not one of those episodes. And I think it's pretty obvious. The episode involves Charlie and Lola trying not to fight, or, I'm sorry, squabble in the UK, so they can see some Chinese puppet show. But if they squabble, they get sent to timeout, or the simmer down chairs. And that's it. Yeah, there's not much going on with this episode. The biggest problem with this episode is pretty obvious. Our two main characters keep bickering about random things until they get sent to timeout, and that's pretty much it. These arguments don't really make sense. I mean, I get they're kids, but still, there's just one argument is about Lola saying that she's being smart and her brain's bigger than her head. What? Then there's another scene where they compete to see who is the loudest. Wow. And it's just mostly Charlie's chomping or eating very loudly, while Lola is just crunching cereal on the ground. Oh, I'm sorry, she's stepping on it. That scene was pretty annoying. And yeah, the episode just gets messier. Also, one thing I'm noticing about the episode is that both Charlie and Lola's usual personalities don't play out very well. Instead, they just fall into character with tropes as personalities, which is kind of reminding me of Snow Day for some reason. Listen, Lola is more annoying and more ruckus in this episode, while Charlie is just the older sibling that disagrees with Lola's claims. Hell, there's even one scene, aka that drawing scene, where they act completely out of character, and that is, and it's that the scene that they both want the red color pencil, and because of that, it leads to Charlie breaking the pencil and them crumbling up each other's pictures. That man. Now, I want to bring up another episode from another show that has a similar premise to this. Wubsy in the Middle from Wow Wow Wubsy. Yes, a show that I just talked about previously. That episode, that episode, but Wubsy in the Middle has a similar premise to Yes I Am, No You're Not. It has both sets of characters fighting. However, with Wubsy in the Middle, it actually does the whole fighting trope well, for two reasons. One, which in Walden don't lean towards unlikability as they're just arguing with each other, and oh yeah, don't do anything that feels out of character. And yes, I know that and second of all, the reason why they're arguing is because they're only trying to help each other, but their attempts don't work, meaning that they had no intent of causing trouble, and that they were only trying to help, and that's why Wubsy in the Middle did this whole final trope very well. And if you guys don't like Wubsy in the Middle, I respect your opinion. It's just my own personal opinion. But with this episode, that is not the case. Not the case. It has Charlie and Lola being annoying in some areas, and that godforsaken scene when they act very out of character and almost lean toward and leans towards unlikability. And while I have no problem with the voice acting in the show, I mean, it sometimes can be annoying, but for the most part, it does fit with their characters. The voice acting is kind of annoying here, mostly during the squabbling moments. Yes, they do make it up at the end, but still doesn't save this episode for being annoying. Overall, there's not much I can say here. I mean, this episode was just a mess, and it was really, really annoying. The Two Musketeers from Backyardigans. Backyardigans is a show I can definitely say was a part of my childhood. The show centers around five animal friends as they go on adventures through their imagination. Each story the character embarks on is really enjoyable, and the adventures are very creative to look back on, such as a dolphin race or a whole city with robots. There's just such a charm. There's just such a charm to the show, and it's very nostalgic to me. However, one episode does not fall into that category. That episode is The Two Musketeers. So the episode involves Pablo and Tyrone as musketeers. That's not a bad premise. However, during the song, Pablo pulls out a picture of the Empress, which happens to be Tasha. And they say that they don't like the Empress. And there's this episode's biggest problem. I mean, the episode must have a reason of why they don't like the Empress. But no, the episode doesn't even bother explain why they don't even like the Empress. Hell, they don't even met the Empress, and yet they still don't like her. And you wanna know why? But if I can say the reason why they don't like the Empress is that they're jealous that she. Excuse me. And if I can give a reason why they don't like the Empress is that they're jealous. It's because she has an hot air balloon, and they want one because they don't have one. He even sang a song how much they don't care about the Empress. And the reasons of those songs have no evidence to back those lyrics up, making their hatred towards the Empress pathetic, which leads me to think that they don't like her for no apparent reason. It's like, seriously, hating someone for no reason is honestly just no reason. It feels like you just hate them. It's like you hated a movie that you don't have an opinion towards. It's like, oh, you hated the movie, although you don't have much cons enough. You don't have enough problems to hate enough to hate the movie. And then there's Tasha, who wants to become a musketeer. However, Pablo and Tyrone won't let her just because, oh, there could only be two musketeers, tiers, and it's just not that three is not their thing. Even though she shares the same tactics as a musketeer should supposed to have. She's supposed to have nice manners. She knows how to. She always supposed to embrace. She's supposed to be embrace. She mostly creates adventure, and she can even make a hot air balloon. But of course, it's not their thing. So Pablo and Tyrone won't, but doesn't want her part of the Musketeers. There, they only decided to include Tasha as a Musketeer is because she saved them. Just great. The biggest problem with this episode, if it wasn't obvious, is how unlikable and jerky Pablo and Tyrone are. I don't know if Musketeers are supposed to act like this, but I'm pretty sure they don't. I mean, something like this could be seen in stuff like modern SpongeBob or Family Guy. But from Backyardigans, a show about a group of kids going on adventures through their imaginations, is pretty off-putting. That's not to say that this episode doesn't have anything good about it. I mean, there were a few jokes, mostly coming from Austin, and how he wants to become a musketeer, and I found those pretty funny. But that's it. This episode was just a mean-spirited mess, and it just paints Pablo and Tyrone as bad role models in this episode, and definitely Backyardigans at its worst. I still will enjoy a lot of Backyardigans episodes, but this won't be one of them. Save for what? From Wonder Pets. For all you don't know, Wonder Pets is my second favorite Nick Jr. show. The show is enjoyable in many areas, and does a good job teaching children about teamwork and has many iconic lines that are memorable even to this day. Well, but what makes Wonder Pets stand out more from other preschool shows is that while most preschool shows tend to break the fourth wall by having the characters directly stare at you whenever they ask you a question, Wonder Pets doesn't fall into those types of shows. The show mostly has 3 classroom pets saving baby animals in trouble, which is something that the fourth wall breaking trope could be used for, but it's kind of, but thank God they don't really use it. They don't use it. Well, they don't use it almost every time. That's where Save the What comes into the equation. The episode starts off like a usual Wonder Pets episode. The titular characters hear the phone ring, head towards it in their usual musical sequence. However, big surprise, the phone's broken, aka the phone has a bend to the side. So the team can't figure out who is calling them. Although before the phone stops working, we do get some evidence. Their backyard. So Lynn decides that they need a bigger team. Then she walks up to the screen and asks us to join their team. And there's the biggest issue with this episode. Throughout the episode, the Wonder Pets are constantly breaking the fourth wall during the mission, and it gets annoying. Feels like a freaking Dora episode. But I think the main reason why I have an issue with this is for one big reason. It feels completely off for the Wonder Pets. This is a show about saving baby animals in trouble, and the fact that the show doesn't, like I said, the fact that the show doesn't break the fourth wall out of it, makes it stand out from other preschool shows. So having to break the fourth wall in this episode feels off-putting and doesn't fit well with the show overall. Another thing to mention is that this show uses photo puppetry for the characters, which means that you could just take a photo of like an animal and just move the hat and animate them to a series. I guess that's what it means. So maybe that could be a reason why the show doesn't break the fourth wall that often. And yes, Wonder Pets definitely had times where the characters do occasionally look at the screen. However, those only last for a second, and it's either for the song sequences or for one of their iconic lines. So the fact that the fact that this episode have them stare at the camera for a majority of the episode is just annoying and kind of uncomfortable to say the least. To be honest, since this show uses full of puppetry, in fact, during my viewings of this episode, I smiled at the time they looked at the character. At the time the character stared at the camera, and not a fun smile, more of an uncomfortable smile. That's how creepy these characters can get when they look at directly at the screen. I know. Look, I know. I don't know. I know. I don't really tend to get this annoyed, but God, and I know and I just want to get my feelings out of this episode out of the way. And yes, I published a lot of one about the Save the What opening in other dubs. Well, that's because it's kind of interesting seeing what it will sound like in other dubs. But just because I upload dubs based on the episode doesn't mean I like it. No, it's still the worst episode of the series. Some people may say that Save the Puppy is worse because of the toilet humor. I didn't really mind that much. Yes, the toilet humor in that episode was gross. Don't get me wrong, but it was just a fine episode for me. And there's other episodes that are worse, like Save the Platypus and Here's Ollie, that are more worse than those episodes. But for me, Save the What is easily the worst episode of the series. And look, most of this entry is just me complaining about the fourth wall breaks in this episode. Let's get to the other issues with this episode. Yes, aside from the fourth wall breaks, which are easily the biggest problem with this episode, most notably when the Wonder Pets do their normal routine, it looks kind of off. It looks kind of off, most because how the characters are interacted to the audience. And some of these scenes get really annoying, especially when the Wonder Pets try to figure out which is an apple tree. They should know which tree is an apple tree. You don't need my help to find out which apple tree is which. Look, I know that was a lot to process there, but I'm sorry, but I just want to get my feelings of this episode off my chest, and I feel like here's the best place to let it all out. Like I said, Wonder Pets is still among my favorite preschool shows of all time. But this episode definitely is definitely not one of the reasons why I love the show. Overall, this episode is just if and just stay away from this episode. Please just stay away from this episode. Again, if you like it, that's perfectly fine. But for me, it's best suited for me just to watch another episode of the show than this. Okay, actually, before we get to number one, I actually have a dishonorable mention. This episode was on the list for so long. It was actually number 5, and this list was originally a top 6 worst episodes of good preschool shows. However, it was up until the day of the filming is where this episode got kicked off the list. This episode is called Animal Snack Time from the Little Einsteins. Now, the reason why I didn't include this episode on the list is that's because I have not seen the full thing. I've only seen parts of it before I include it on the list. And looking back on it, I'm like, yeah, I haven't really seen much of this episode to give it an honest review. I still don't like the episode. It's boring and very annoying, especially Annie's song. And while I don't have a problem with Annie's songs, since she is a singer, her song is just really annoying here, especially the nya nya nya. Oh, yeah, you get the point. I'm not gonna. But I only give it a dishonorable mention. It's because there is something I'm missing. Maybe there's something I missed here. So that's the main reason why this episode only gets a dishonorable mention. But you can honestly count it as number 6. But then again, it's a dishonorable mention. It's because yes, I don't like the episode, but I just need to take the time to. I need to watch the whole thing in order to justify my claim. Anyways, let's just get to number 1. My Bato from Pocoyo. Pocoyo, in my opinion, is an enjoyable and nice cartoon to watch, but it's kind of hit or miss in some areas, since it's just one of those shows where our main characters don't talk. I mean, Pocoyo does talk in some moments, but he's mostly quiet for the most of the time. The show can have some really enjoyable episodes. There are some episodes I really enjoy, like Whole Lot of Trouble, Monster Madness, and Poxzilla. And sometimes it can be very funny at times. However, like other shows on this list, Pocoyo definitely has some duds. Surprise, surprise, a lot of duds. Picking an episode for the worst was kind of hard. I mean, there was a lot of episodes that I did not enjoy. Like, You Are Welcome for Thanksgiving was just really annoying, or Get Lost Lula was just unnecessarily cruel, while Picnic Puzzle had the whole frame trope. But I went with my battle. So, let's just get one thing out of the way. This episode is involving Pocoyo and Ellie. Ellie fighting over Pato. And that's pretty much it. I think let's probably get the obvious reason why I don't like this episode. This episode is another freaking fighting episode. And now, I'm gonna be honest. This episode has similar elements to number 4. Number 4, which was Yes, I Am, No You're Not from Charlie and Lola. And yes, I do say that the episode was bad, but I feel like this episode is worse. Well, considering that it's number 1 and it's higher than number 4, but again, I feel like this episode is worse for many reasons. As much as I don't like Yes I Am, No You're Not, at least Charlie and Lola managed to make it up at the end by realizing their mistakes when they get sent to timeout again. However, this episode, like I said, Charlie and Lola did act very out of character in one scene, but it was only by their attempt. However, it was only that one scene. There were no other scenes where they act completely out of character. Oh yeah, and the part where they do act out of character wasn't even that cruel. But with this episode, this is probably the cruelest episode from a preschool show I've ever seen. Literally, the first minutes of the episode, the first second of this episode already starts with Pocoyo and Ellie bickering about something. What's worse is that the episode doesn't even address what they're arguing about. Now, this isn't the first time Pocoyo had an episode about fighting. There was another episode that had fighting, and it came before this episode, and it was in season 1. That episode was called A Little Something Between Friends, and that episode had Pocoyo and Pato fighting. However, A Little Something Between Friends did the whole fighting trope actually very well. Why? It's because how the fighting was handled, and the characters realizes that they were going too far and missed each other, and they realized that this whole thing was this was a bit too much. There was even an emotional moment in there that really proves this claim. Oh yeah, and there was a freaking reason why Pocoyo and Pato were fighting. It's because the block tower fell over and Pato wanted more bricks and Pocoyo pulled the brick from the bottom. But in this episode, the fighting is not well played out and it comes across as annoying. But believe me, the fighting is the least of this episode's problems. Oh boy, we got a lot to cover. I'm pretty sure, and I'm definitely sure that this is the first episode on this list to be a torture episode. Yeah, none of the other entries on my list involves characters being tortured. Not even the 2 Musketeers. But this episode is about Pato's birthday, and like I said, Pocoyo and Ellie are fighting over him, and hell, they even go cruel in some areas. For example, Pocoyo locks Pato in a freaking cage, and Ellie freezes him solid. What the hell? And I know that I get that they don't have any intentions to harm Pato. But for a preschool show, it's a bit too much. And even after they put Pato through hell, they still continue to bicker with each other. Did you two not even realize what Pato had to go through? on his damn birthday. And yes, they do make it up to Pato at the end, which was nice, but that doesn't excuse the torture they put him through. I just really feel bad for Pato because it's his birthday. All he wants to have is a simple birthday, but got screwed over pretty hard by two of his friends who can't shut up. Like I said, Pocoyo has had fighting episodes before, but this is the worst example of fighting in this show. Overall, My Pato is a mean-spirited and cruel mess of an episode. That's easily the worst episode of Pocoyo, and it's definitely the worst episode of a good preschool show. And that was it for my list. Look, just because preschool shows have bad episodes doesn't mean that it affects the show overall. Again, just because, like I said, even though these episodes may be bad, I still enjoyed some of these series, as some of them do play a huge part in my childhood, and I do appreciate that. I may not like these episodes, but I still enjoy the shows overall. And I do appreciate some for some of the preschool shows for making up my childhood. But like I said, just because a preschool show is good doesn't mean it's perfect. Overall, that's it for this video. So thanks for watching. Please subscribe to the channel. And I'll be sure to post more review like videos like this in the future. And that's all I have to say. I'm gonna go because this video is probably a bit too long. So take care and I'll see you guys next time. Adios.